Success. It's something we think about a lot, that we desperately want and strive for. So much so, there are already over 1,000 other TED Talks on the subject. But I'm not here today to talk to you about traditional notions of success. I'm here to talk to you about how you can succeed even when you're failing. When you think about what traditional success looks like, it might conjure images of wealthy celebrities who build leadership academies for girls, first ladies who write the best-selling memoirs of all time, or activists who fight to equalize the world. If achieving monumental goals like this is what it takes to be considered a success, well, I don't know about you, but it makes me feel destined to be a spectacular failure. And while we might not be quite holding ourselves to the standard of becoming Oprah, Michelle, or a mighty suffragette, we do in many cultures hyper-focus on goal achievement as the measure of success. These might be professional goals like getting a degree or promotion, parenting goals like getting a kid into a good college, creative goals like having a painting commissioned, or citizenship goals of getting women equal pay for equal work. You set a goal, you take steps to achieve it. If you do so, you're a success. By this definition, though, on the flip side, if you don't achieve the goal, you're a failure. I think we have this all wrong. Now, some will argue that failure is good, that the one thing the most successful people in the world have in common is that they've experienced failure more often than others. But I'd like to argue that failure to achieve their goals is not really the thing that these successful people likely have in common. For those of you who play sports, if I were on the pitch or the court or the field and I offered up a magic spell that would give you the victory without ever having to touch a ball, would you take me up on it? The goal is to win, after all, and this would make you a success. For all you parents, what is the goal of parenting? I know I'd like my 2 children to become kind, loving, independent, contributing adults. What if my magic spell could turn your kids into exactly the humans you'd like them to be? Your goal of having your kids turn out to be great adults would be achieved. You'd be a success as a parent. There's just one catch. You have to hand them over and poof, I will give them back to you when they're 30-year-olds. Now, maybe if you have 2-year-olds or a teenager, you might take me up on this, but in general, most parents would not. And why is that? Because the whole point is playing the game and going through the process of parenting, not just achieving the goal of winning or having kids who turn out to be great adults. We can want those things and work in ways to make them more likely. But perhaps we need a shift in focus here. Now, I'm not just repackaging, it's not whether you win or lose, it's how you play the game, or life is about the journey and not the destination. I mean, that is partly what I'm saying. But there's more to it than this. Allow me to share an example of my own. I love writing, and I have a couple professional psychology books that I've published, but what I'm talking about is creative and personal writing. And I have about a dozen pieces at varying stages of completion: children's picture books and poems, personal essays, even the beginning of a YA novel and memoir. And so my goal for my creative writing, the outcome I desire, is to get published. Now, I have submitted many of these pieces for publication, and I've been doing this for over 10 years. Can you guess how many of those pieces I've had published? Exactly 1, and that was just this past year. So by our earlier definition of success, I have a goal, I set out to achieve it. I would be a spectacular failure of a writer. So maybe it's time to hang up the typewriter. But this is the exact problem with an over-focus on goal achievement as the measure of success. When we don't get the outcome we desire, we stop moving forward, even if what we're doing deeply matters to us. And most importantly, we're playing a rigged game, because goals are outcomes, and outcomes are almost entirely outside of our control. So for example, you might have a goal of getting a new job, getting married, or changing discriminatory practices at your kid's elementary school, just to pull an example out of thin air. And you can certainly take steps to make that more likely, but whether or when it ultimately happens is kind of out of your hands. So what happens after you send out 20 resumes, spend 6 months doing online dating, or make a stellar presentation to the school administrators, and you don't land the job, find the perfect mate, or effect meaningful change? If you see these as failures, you very well may give up. You may stop moving forward. What if there was a better way? Now, as both a therapist and a writer, I would never just tell a client or a reader what that better way was. What's the fun in that? They say show, don't tell, so I would show them. Because that's really the best way to get a concept, is to experience it personally firsthand. So what I'd like to ask you to do is get a pen or a pencil, anything you can hold in your hand. It doesn't have to write. Now seriously, go get a pen or a pencil. Really, go get a pen or a pencil. Okay, now I want you to think about a goal that you've been working hard to achieve. Something that you've been putting a ton of energy into, attention, effort, both physically and mentally. And when you have those details in your mind, I want you to grasp the pen as tightly as would represent all that you've been putting toward achieving that goal. This could be the worries, the researching, any planning or problem solving, getting reassurance from other people, and then of course whatever actions or tasks you've actually engaged in. Squeeze that pen and notice how hard you're holding it. Give it a number, 0 to 10, and just notice how it feels. Now I want you to release your grip by about 50%. So, if you were holding it in at 8, try holding it at a 4. And notice how that feels, how it's changed, how it feels differently than before. And now hold the pen as lightly as possible without letting it drop. And notice how that feels and how it's different from before. Now, what's the one thing that hasn't changed? You're still holding the pen. So maybe instead of hyper-focusing on goal achievement as our main or even only measure of success, we can continue to move forward with the actions that make realizing our goals more likely, but while holding the outcomes more lightly. Now, of course, when we pursue a goal like getting a job or finding a spouse or righting an organizational wrong, if we don't get the outcome we desire, rejection is painful. Let's think about why that is. I would argue it's because what we're pursuing is important to us. Pain is like a bright red neon arrow pointing at exactly what matters in your heart. Consider what keeps you up at night. Is it worry about whether Netflix or HBO is going to stay in business? You may enjoy binge watching The Vow as much as the next person I know I do. But unless you have a loved one in an actual sex cult, I bet you're not losing sleep over it. The worry that keeps you up at night is about your family, friends, health, career, the things you really care about. And while you may not be able to control the outcome of getting the job, finding the spouse, changing discriminatory practices, or in my case, getting published, you can decide who shows up to each life moment. Each present moment offers a new opportunity to choose what you do and how you do it. You can write an online dating profile and show up to coffee dates openly, authentically, or playfully. You can participate in job interviews enthusiastically and well prepared. You can fight the status quo with courage and vigor. And you can write because you value creativity, skill building, and perseverance. We're never done being authentic, playful, courageous, creative, or persistent. These are qualities of being and doing that we can choose to embody in each moment, whether we achieve the goals and outcomes we desire or not. In our current reality, we have very little control over the outcomes of a global pandemic, other people's behavior, or the results of important elections. But we can choose the types of humans and citizens we want to be as we navigate our challenging world. As you consider who this me might be for you, fear, uncertainty, or the ever-present imposter syndrome may very well accompany you every step of the way. This is because you care, remember? And you could allow those passengers to sneak into the driver's seat of your life, or you could call upon the wisdom of those who have gone before us, like Oprah, Michelle, or a mighty suffragette. I know when my inner critic gets loud, I think, WWOD, what would Oprah do? Not because Oprah has achieved some incredibly impressive goals, which of course she has, but because when she faced poverty, abuse, racism, sexism, body shamers, she embodied determination, courage, perseverance, and authenticity. And it is inside the embodiment of these qualities that we can succeed, even when we may be failing. If we choose to focus on how we show up to each moment, we'll be more likely to persist, even when we don't achieve our desired goals or outcomes. And if we keep showing up in these ways, life is better. May not be less painful or easier, but we certainly feel more alive. So the question is not what goal or outcome must you achieve to be a success. The question is, who is the me you most desire to be in this one moment? Maybe it's no coincidence that me sits right inside moment. Thank you.